The back half of 2025 came loaded with massive age statements, bold experiments, and some of the best whiskey releases we've tasted in a long time.
Today, we're ranking 30 more major whiskey releases from 2025. If you missed part 1, catch up when you can, but the June to December releases are so big you can start right here.
Now, a lot of you have been asking how you can support the channel, and the easiest way is by grabbing something from our merch store. We design everything ourselves, and every sale helps us do more videos like this. We also want to thank you guys because we just hit 10,000 subscribers, and we truly appreciate all of your support.
To mark the occasion, we'll be hosting a live stream on Wednesday, January 14th at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. Put it on your calendar, bring a drink, and come hang out with us for a night. Now, let's rank some of 2025's newest bottles. Every bottle in this video is either a first-time release or newly available in the US in 2025, and today's video covers the major releases from June through December. At the end of our ranking, we'll unveil our 2025 Scroty Award winners.
The superior cask release of the year. We couldn't come up with a better name. That's the best we got.
Kicking things off at bottle number 31, we've got Blue Note Single Barrel Straight Rye. Blue Note kicks off part 2 with a 95.5 rye that hits 117 plus proof and still comes in around 50 bucks. It's fruity, spicy, a little richer than you'd expect for its age, and overall a solid value rye. For me, it lands as a really enjoyable pour, just not quite distinctive enough to jump into the top tiers. I scored it an 84.
I really enjoy Blue Note. With their single barrel, you get big rye spice, but also that bright fruit layer and a surprising amount of depth. For the proof and the price, Blue Note is a solid purchase. I gave it an 89. Between your 84 and my 89, that averages out to an 87, placing Blue Note Single Barrel Straight Rye in the B tier. Bottle number 32 is Eagle Rare 12. Eagle Rare 10 has always been one of my quintessential bourbons, so bumping it up to a 12-year and raising the proof by 5 points instantly makes this feel like a step up in every way. It's richer, deeper, oakier in the best way, and still keeps that silky Eagle Rare profile. Absolutely fantastic bottle. I scored it a 95.
This is one of those releases that actually feels like a meaningful step up. Those extra 2 years add real maturity, and the higher proof brings more structure and flavor without losing the smooth, polished character people love about Eagle Rare. It's everything you want from the 10-year, just more. And just like that, the Eagle has landed us in sync, as I also gave it a 95.
Boom!
With our 95s, Eagle Rare 12 finds itself flying high in the S tier. Bottle number 33, we've got Garavogue 20-year single malt Irish whiskey. You know Irish whiskey is my thing, so I went into this with high hopes. A 20-year single malt debut from a distillery rebrand? Yes, please. But
I knew there was a but.
there was a big but.
Oh.
The big but was that the finish completely threw me off on this one. There was this weird mix of like tropical fruit and beer. It just did not sit well. The flavor is interesting. It's got a cool story, just not what I was expecting. I scored it a 78.
All right. See, I really like the boldness of this one. This is 14 years in ex-bourbon barrels with additional finishing in various wines and rum casks to layer in more fruit and sweetness. It's different, it's expressive, and a lot more adventurous than most 20-year Irish bottles. Sad to see us disband here after being completely in sync, but my big butt here enjoys this bottle, and I gave this one a 90. Between your 78 and my 90, that averages out to an 84, placing Garavogue 20-year single malt in the B tier. Bottle number 34 is Old Fitzgerald 7-year bottled in bond bourbon. This bottle is being pitched as an ongoing, readily available release, not just a limited run, which I love because if this thing sticks, it's great news. This whiskey absolutely delivers. I get rich caramel, I get walnut rind, smooth oak, and a nice finish that ties it all together. I scored this sucker a 90.
I went in expecting a solid pour since we both like the Old Fitz lineup. What I found was a bourbon that hits all the right notes for the price. Age statement, bonded proof, great flavor, and availability. It doesn't quite reach S tier territory for me, but it's a strong A tier bottle. We are in sync again because I also gave this a 90.
All right, so you just had a little blip there where you kind of went astray, but
did.
now we're back together and now we're in perfect harmony.
I went to Ireland, I didn't like it, I threw up a little and then I came back. Our 90s put Old Fitzgerald's 7-year bottled and bond in the A tier. Bottle number 35, we've got Penelope Cigar Sessions, Chapter 1. Most cigar blends lean on finishing barrels. Think cognac, Armagnac, sherry, that whole lineup. Penelope went the opposite direction here. There's no finishing at all. Instead, they blended bourbon, American single malt, and light whiskey to recreate that cigar style profile from scratch. And honestly, it works. I scored it a 95.
It's layered, sweet, toasty, and has way more complexity than you'd expect from a non-finished blend. I'm not a cigar smoker, so I don't know how this would pair with one, but judged by taste alone, this is one of Penelope's best releases yet. Magic is in the air, Ryan, because I also gave it a 95, meaning that we are in sync back to back.
Holy crap.
With R95's Penelope Cigar Sessions Chapter 1 earns its place in the S tier for 2025. And that is 3 out of the first 5 we rank that are in sync, Ryan. Bottle number 36 is RD1 whiskey finished with Japanese Mizunara and French oak. Finished bourbons aren't anything new for RD1. Their Amberana cask finish was one that we both personally really enjoyed. So when I saw that this was one that was finished in Mizunara and French oak, I was excited, Ryan.
You were giddy.
I was so giddy, I couldn't stand up for a week. But honestly, it wasn't as exciting as their Amberana cask finish one. The flavors were good, but not incredibly memorable. I got some fruit sweetness, a little bit of spice, and a little caramel and orange peel, but it was all kind of mellow. You know what I mean?
I do.
So I gave it an 80.
I normally get pumped anytime a bottle says Mizunara, but this one never really found its identity. It's pleasant and drinkable, but compared to what RD1 has already proven they can do with finishing, this one just didn't rise to that level. I gave it a 78. With your 80 and my 78, that averages out to a 79, placing RD1, Mizunara, and French Oak in the C tier. Up next, at bottle number 37, we've got Redemption 18-year-old bourbon. Yes, it brings age. Yes, it delivers more maturity, but at around $400 MSRP, most likely 2 to 3 times that on the secondary, I just don't see it as a must chase for me. Very good bottle, just not one I can justify for the price. I scored it an 86.
This is their legendary Ancient series at its boldest. 18 years, rich cherry jam, warm cinnamon, oak depth. It's craftsmanship and time pressed into a gorgeous little bottle. I try not to consider price in these rankings, but sometimes it's necessary because when a bottle costs about as much as a weekend cruise for me, it has to deliver. It does, but I'd rather take the cruise. I gave it a 91. Between your 86 and my 91, that averages out to an 89, placing Redemption 18-year-old bourbon in the B tier. Bottle number 38 is Barrel Whiskey Decade. Barrel doesn't mess around, and this one proves it. They called it the hazmat release for a reason. It's 142.7 proof. It's a blend of whiskeys distilled between 1995 and 2005, finished in Spanish brandy and Hungarian oak casks. It's bold, it's wild, it's hot, and it's super balanced. This thing will have you calling it daddy and make you enjoy it. I scored it a 92.
Now we've seen Barrel's high proof work before, but Decade takes it up several notches. That crazy proof level usually means run for cover, but this one is refined, expressive, and layered. The hazmat tag is earned, and this is absolutely a bottle that stands out in the line. I gave it a 90. With your 92 and my 90, that averages out to a 91, placing Barrel Whiskey Decade in the A tier. Up next at bottle number 39, we've got Castle and Key Distillery 6-year-old small batch bourbon. This new 6-year small batch version gives us an extra 2 years of aging and a few more proof points than their previous release. You can feel the maturity coming through, and at around $40, it's a crazy value. I scored it a 90.
Castle and Key deserves more attention because they make some really good products. This bottle gave me those quintessential bourbon notes I look for, and it might just be the best under the radar bourbon of the year. I gave it a 91. Between your 90 and my 91, that averages out to a 91, placing Castle and Key Distillery 6-year-old small batch bourbon in the A tier. Bottle number 40 is Old Granddad 7-year bottled in bond bourbon. This new 7-year age statement on Old Granddad gives the brand some overdue polish. More aged oak, richer flavor, deeper maturity compared to their standard options. For around $40, you can do so much worse, so I scored this dependable Old Granddad an 88.
I like the 7-year age statement, but full disclosure, I actually prefer Old Granddad 114. It's higher proof, and in my bottle by bottle calculus, I came away thinking the 7-year is good, just not something I chase hard when the 114 is right there. I gave it an 82. Between your 88 and my 82, that averages out to an 85, placing Old Granddad 7-year in the B tier. Coming in at bottle number 41, we've got Sazerac Rye 100 proof. Sazerac's 100 proof expression nails that peppery rye bite, smooth vanilla sweetness, and a finish that's more refined than its standard 90 proof bottling. But for me, it didn't stray far enough from expectations to push it into the A tier. I scored it an 84.
Yeah, I agree, Ryan. It's reliable, well-made rye. You get the history, the spicy backbone, the smooth finish, and for many folks, this is exactly what they want. I personally really enjoy it, but that said, it's not doing anything especially new in the rye game in 2025, so I gave this bottle an 82. Between your 84 and my 82, that averages out to an 83, placing Sazerac Rye 100 proof in the B tier. Now, Sazerac 125 proof was also released late in 2025, but we haven't sampled it yet, so we cannot rate it in this list today. But if you've tried it, let us know what you think of it in the comments below. Bottle number 42 is Short Barrel Kentucky 4-grain bourbon. It feels like Short Barrel came out of nowhere this year. This 4-grain bourbon is their new permanent release featuring 20% wheat. It's 92 proof, non-chill filtered, and meant to be an easy everyday sipper. It's beginner friendly and under $50, but there are plenty on the market and even on this list that fit the description and I think are tastier. I scored it a 74.
It's young, it's light, and it doesn't really surprise you in any direction. And you can tell they wanted to make something balanced and drinkable, but for me, it just ended up being fine. Totally serviceable, not something I'd reach for often. I gave it a 76. With your 74 and my 76, that averages out to 75, placing Short Barrel Kentucky 4-grain bourbon in the C tier. Up next at bottle number 43, we've got Glen Scotia 12-year. When a distillery with the pedigree of Glen Scotia introduces a 12-year age statement into its core lineup, it is a big deal. This one delivers on that promise. It's got tropical fruit and a light maritime kick, all finished in ex-bourbon casks. For me, it's a solid addition to the Glen Scotia lineup, and I'm happy to have another Campbelltown whiskey to reach for. I scored it an 85.
I'm glad Glen Scotia caught up to the 12-year statement game. They use first fill bourbon casks, a natural presentation, and that classic Campbelltown character. The tropical fruit and the maritime notes are there, but the palate felt a little lighter and not terribly exciting or unique. Good bottle, just not one that left a big impression on me, so I scored it an 80. Between your 85 and my 80, that averages out to an 83, putting Glen Scotia 12 in the B tier. Bottle number 44 is Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Heritage Barrel. This is Jack Daniel's doing something familiar, but elevated. They kept the standard mash bill and maple char mellowing, but the barrel treatment is the star. Extra long toasted finish, flasks charred and aged in the upper floors of their heat-heavy warehouses, and you can taste every bit of it. That combo gives us that sweet vanilla, toasted oak, and that creamy dessert-leaning profile that still has JD's backbone. Really well done. I scored this little sexy bad boy a 92.
For me, this one absolutely stands out in the Jack Daniel's single barrel world. The high toast, low char barrels, and the lower 100 proof entry point bring out all that custard, marshmallow, and deep brown sugar. A great example of how small tweaks can create a totally different profile. I scored it a 93. Between your 92 and my 93, that averages out to a 93, placing Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Heritage Barrel in the A tier.
I'm so glad, Ryan. I was concerned you were gonna pull it out of the A.
I really pushed it deeper into the A.
You pushed it deeper into the A. Yeah. You gave it a higher score than I did.
Yeah. Up next at bottle number 45, we've got Woodinville Straight Bourbon aged 9 years. I've been a fan of Woodinville for a while, and this 9-year release really shows how far they've come. The extra age brings more depth and complexity, and even though the oak leans a little heavier than my ideal, it still lands as a big, flavorful, really satisfying pour. This is easily one of their most impressive releases so far. I scored it a 91.
The 9-year gives you those bold spices, dark fruit, caramel, and that toasted barrel richness that gives it some real personality. The oak feels a bit overpowering, but it's still an incredibly tasty pour. I gave it a 90. Between your 91 and my 90, that averages out to a 91, placing Woodinville Straight Bourbon aged 9 years in the A tier. Bottle number 46 is 1792 Cognac Cask Finish. And what a good release from 1792. This was one of the bottles that we used in our Cognac Finish blind tasting, and it instantly stood out. We both liked it then, and it holds up just as well here. 1792 finished this in French cognac barrels and aged it on the top floor of the rick house, which explains why the flavors are so intense. Dark fruit, praline, fig, toasted oak, all wrapped in this warm, luxurious cognac sweetness. It's like a blanket of love dipped in some fruits that you just smother your face in. I loved it and I gave it a 93.
I'm trying to think of the last time I smothered a blanket in fruits and put it over my face.
You should try it. I'm actually 68 years old and that's why I look so young.
Yeah, this one really impressed me in the blind, and it impressed me again revisiting it here. This was 1792's first cask finish in 10 years. And the best part is it's right around $40 MSRP. Easily one of the best finishes of the year. I gave it a 94. Between your 93 and my 94, that averages out to a 94, placing 1792 cognac cask firmly in the A tier. Up next at bottle number 47, we've got Dingle 10-year single malt. This is basically a revamped version of Dingle's single malt. Now with a 10-year age statement and officially part of their core lineup, which is huge for them. I got a lot of sweetness, dried fruit, and some nice richness underneath. I really liked it. I scored it an 89.
This is a really interesting release from Dingle. The combination of bourbon, port, and PX finishes really gives it that layered Irish profile. Caramel from the bourbon casks, deep red fruit from the port, and that syrupy goodness from PX. Really well balanced, really enjoyable. We were pretty close here, Ryan, because I gave it an 88. Between your 89 and my 88, that averages out to an 89, chasing Dingle 10-year single malt in the B tier. Bottle number 48 is Elijah Craig Barrel Proof Rye. Elijah Craig knows how to do barrel proof. Their bourbon batches are legends at this point, and even their toasted rye has a fan base. But this is their first ever barrel proof rye. And oddly enough, it comes in way lower than the bourbon releases at 108 proof. It's good, it's balanced, it's easy to sip, but for something labeled barrel proof, it never really hit that intensity that I was looking for, Ryan, especially given the track record. I scored it a 79.
You know, I wasn't expecting levels of chaos, but I was expecting more punch than this, especially when you compare it to a couple of the higher power ryes coming up later in this video. Good flavor, nice oak, but not quite the standout people expected from Elijah Craig's first barrel proof rye. I gave it an 82. With your 79 and my 82, that averages out to an 81, placing Elijah Craig barrel proof rye in the B tier. Up next at bottle number 49, we've got Milam and Greene Provisions Bourbon. When I saw this thing was proofed at 80, I wasn't expecting much at all. But man, this bottle blew my hair back. This thing is sweet, it's balanced, super drinkable, and somehow still really flavorful at that proof. No joke, this ended up being one of my favorite Texas releases of 2025. And the best part, it's $35. Absolute steal. I scored it an 89.
This feels very much like an offshoot of Milam and Greene's The Answer, which is one that we covered in part 1. But instead of comparing Texas versus Kentucky aging like they did there, this one actually blends the two components together. Then they give the whole blend additional aging time in Texas, which adds that signature Texas funk. Bigger sweetness, more spice, more earth, and more heat influence. I wish it had more proof because I think it would have given it a ton of depth. But at 80 proof, this gentle giant is getting an 81 from me. Between your 89 and my 81, that averages out to an 85, placing Milam and Greene Provisions Bourbon in the B tier. And now cracking our last 10 bottles, at bottle number 50, we've got Penelope Estate Collection Private Select 10-year Bourbon. Penelope dropped a ton of first-time releases in 2025, and we've already talked about several of them, but this one might actually be the best one of their entire lineup. A true 10-year bourbon that drinks every bit its age. Rich caramel, toasted oak, dried red fruit, and that polished depth that you get from a well-managed decade in a barrel. At around $90 in Austin, Texas, this thing is a steal and one of the best whiskeys that I've tried this year. I scored it a 96.
That 10-year age statement brings backbone, maturity, and structure that hits immediately. You get this great blend of sweetness and seasoned oak, layers of graham cracker, fruit, baking spice, everything just feels dialed in. One of the strongest bottles they've ever put out. I also gave it a 96, so we are back in sync, baby.
Yeah!
Our 96s catapult Penelope Estate Collection 10-year bourbon into the S tier.
I am so glad it did, Ryan. Honestly, I did not expect you to give it a 96 as well.
No?
I am very glad you did, because this thing is tasty.
That was a great bottle. Up next at bottle number 51, we've got Sagamore Spirit 10-year straight rye. It's no secret that we both love what Sagamore Spirit is doing, and this one, their oldest straight rye released to date at 10 years, really follows through on that hype. Bold rye spice balanced by dark fruit, vanilla, and oak that isn't overbearing, but definitely earned its spot. For me, this is one of their best yet. I scored it a 95. I really love what Sagamore's doing.
Oh, Saggy. That Saggy's getting a Scroty. From the start, you can tell that they're treating this rye like a premium offering. Longer age, intentional barrel selection, everything dialed for impact. It's mature, complex, and yet still true to the rye forward profile that we expect from Sagamore Spirit. It was a standout in the rye world this year, and we are going back to back in sync once more because I also gave it a 95. With R95's Sagamore Spirit 10-year straight rye earns its spot in the S tier. And that is 2 back-to-back S tiers, back-to-back in sinks. I feel like I am in euphoria right now. Bottle number 52 is Woodford Reserve Masters Collection Sweet Oak Bourbon. For this release, Woodford used chinkapin oak barrels for the finish, which gives it a distinct profile. A softer oak, a sweeter spice, and kind of a baked apple pecan vibe, and a warmth that's lighter than the typical charred new oak. So in theory, it's very interesting. But when you charge a premium and place the bottle in a series called Masters Collection, I expect more depth and a feeling in your tummy that makes you giggle when you taste it. I scored it an 84.
I respect the experimentation, and the use of chinkapin is curious, but when I tasted it, I kept waiting for more of a punch or a twist. It didn't hit the same wow level as many others on this list. Good work by Woodford, just not exactly my favorite direction. I gave it an 82. Between your 84 and my 82, that averages out to an 83, placing Woodford Reserve Masters Collection Sweet Oak Bourbon in the B tier. At bottle number 53, we've got Angel's Envy 10-year cash strength bourbon. This was a really cool moment for Angel's Envy. Their first ever age-stated expression, and they came out swinging with a 10-year at a hefty 122.6 proof. And of course, it's finished in the port wine casks they're famous for. We're usually fans of Angel's Envy, and this one felt like a natural evolution of what they do. Sweet, bold, rich, and full of character. Solid release for 2025. I scored it a 90.
Hell yeah, Angel's Envy. You released those bottles with an H statement. That's what they should be doing. You still get that classic Angel's Envy profile. Red fruit, caramel, warm spice, and that port finish that's tying it all together. But the higher proof gives it some oomph. It drinks like a grown-up version of what they built their reputation on. I gave it a 91. Between your 90 and my 91, that averages out to a 91, placing Angel's Envy 10-year cask strength bourbon in the A tier. Bottle number 54 is Bardstown Collaborative Series Ferrand 2. Ferrand 2 was a big moment for Bardstown this year. They did a Ferrand 1 back in 2022, but this one is a completely different animal. The first version was all bourbon and spent about 8 months in Ferrand cognac casks, but Ferrand 2 brings in a rye component, and they extended the finishing to a massive 15 months, which gives it an entirely new depth. We also had this one in our cognac finish blind tasting, and without spoiling it for the people who haven't watched it yet, it did very well. I scored it a 94.
This was honestly one of my favorite bottles of 2025. The extra finishing time and that rye presence gives it richness, brightness, and structure all at once. Not to mention, it is completely decadent. It's everything I want out of a Bardstown Collaborative Series bottle. They swung big with this and they knocked it out of the park. I gave it a 95. Between your 94 and my 95, that averages out to a 95, placing Bardstown Ferrand 2 in the S tier.
Look at that, Ryan. You pulled this one up.
Man.
From the A to the S.
Look at that. Bottle number 55 on our list, we've got Compass Box Brulee Royale. Compass Box has always known how to do blended malts right, and they absolutely crushed it with this Brulee Royale. The blend leans heavily on Highland and Speyside malts, so you get that creamy dessert leaning profile. But the wild part is, there's this tiny 0.5% component of 23-year-old Ardbeg. It gives just enough of that smoked custard texture to add depth without taking over the whole blend. Super intentional and very well executed. I scored it a 91.
Yeah, that little touch of Ardbeg is genius. And if it were even 2%, it would dominate. But at 0.5%, it just adds this little whisper of smoke, Ryan, that plays so perfectly with that sweet, silky base malt. Compass Box is the king of nuance and blended malts. And this release is a master class in balance. I gave it a 90. Between your 91 and my 90, that averages out to a 91, placing Compass Box Brulee Royale in the A tier. Bottle number 56 is Garrison Brothers Sonora. Garrison Brothers flipped the script on this one. A wheated bourbon with no rye in the mash bill, but then finished it in rye whiskey casks. The base was aged for 4 years, then an extra 3 years in those used rye barrels, all under the heat of the Texas summers. Now that finish is where the rye notes show up, like pepper, a touch of anise, with that wheat mash bill giving it so much sweetness and smoothness. I'm not a fan of everything Garrison Brothers does, but when they hit so hard. And this one hits. A bold twist and a standout release. I scored it a 95.
This one blew me away. You can tell Garrison brothers knew exactly what they were doing. The wheat core makes it rich and approachable, then the rye barrel finish adds a subtle spice lift without overwhelming the profile. It's layered, textured, and unmistakably Texan. Another great release for 2025. I gave it a 94. Between your 95 and my 94, that averages out to a 95, placing Garrison brothers Sonora in the S tier, and now it's your turn to pull one up into the S tier.
That's what I do, man.
Coming in at bottle number 57, we've got Knob Creek 21-year bourbon. Knob Creek is one of my favorite bourbon brands out there, and to be honest, I was a little disappointed by the 18-year release. But the 21-year, this one ended up being my highest ranked bottle of our entire list. With a robust age statement and serious depth, this is Knob Creek showing us what they can really do. I scored it a 97.
Whoa, I like that. I like the spirit, Ryan. This is Jim Beam's highest age statement release to date. A milestone expression with an MSRP around $250, which may sound steep, but when you compete in the 20+ year bourbon market, it's actually pretty reasonable.
It is.
And the juice backs it up. Ripe fruit, creamy toffee, seasoned oak, all wrapped in Beam's familiar character, but elevated and wrapped, Ryan, into this beautiful blanket that you just want to just...
Oh, now you're motorboating the blankets.
I am motorboating this blanket, Ryan. This is so good. I gave it a 96. Between your 97 and my 96, that averages out to a 97, placing Knob Creek 21-year bourbon in the S tier. And definitely in contention, at least for one of us, in the Scroty.
That's right.
3 more left. With bottle 58, we got Old Overholt Cast Strength Rye, aged 12 years. Now here's another one from the Beam family. And compared to last year's 11-year bottle, they bumped the proof by roughly 10 points. You could definitely taste the maturity here. You get chewy rye spice, a light herbal edge, and for the price and pedigree, I think it's a solid release. I scored it an 88.
I was pleasantly surprised by this one as well. Old Overholt often flies under the radar in the rye world, but this version shows them leveling up. That extra year and the higher proof give more body and depth, and it has a good balance between spice and smoothness. Not perfect for me, but very solid. I gave it an 86. Between your 88 and my 86, that averages out to an 87, placing Old Overholt Cask Strength Rye 12-year in the B tier. Up next at bottle number 59, we've got Brooklatty, the Laddie Rye. Now this one has a special backstory for me. My wife actually got it for my birthday, and honestly, without that, it might have flown right under my radar. But man, I am glad she found it. This is Brooklatty's first ever rye whiskey, and it's a US exclusive. It carries a legit 7-year age statement. And given that Brooklatty is the only distillery on Islay making rye whiskey, this release feels genuinely special. I scored it a 91.
What makes it even more unique is that they used Islay-grown rye and barley, and then aged it entirely on Islay, so you get that subtle maritime character layered onto a rye profile. Something that you really don't ever see in Scotch.
No.
And the fact that this is their first crack at rye, it's pretty incredible. They kept the Brooklatty DNA while giving rye a new personality. I gave it a 90. Between your 91 and my 90, that averages out to a 91, placing Brooklatty, the Laddie Rye, in the A tier. And the final bottle that we are covering today for 2025, we've got Jack Daniel's Tenured Hill. When I heard that there wasn't gonna be a Coy Hill release this year, I was bummed. That's one of my favorite releases, but the Tenured Hill showed up and completely erased that disappointment. This is a straight rye whiskey that's either flirting with hazmat territory or in some cases flat out crossing the line, hitting up to 148.8 proof. And if you know Jack Daniel's rickhouses, it makes total sense. Tenured Hill sits right next to Coy Hill, so the Angel share is basically on steroids. It's intense, it's wild, it might burn half your face off, but it's undeniably one of the standout releases of 2025. How something with so much burn could feel so good going down your throat is beyond me, Ryan, but I gave it a 95.
This one is a monster in the best possible way. You get that thick, syrupy concentration, the deep rye spice, the roasted dark sweetness, everything you want from a high-octane Tennessee rye without it collapsing under its own weight. It's explosive and somehow still balanced enough to keep you going back for another sip. For a year without Coy Hill, this was exactly the kind of heavyweight Jack needed to drop. I also scored it a 95, so we are ending 2025 completely in sync.
Yeah.
Our 95s put Jack Daniel's Tenured Hill up in the S tier.
And now that we covered the major new releases of 2025, it's time to determine which one gets our Scroty Award, the Superior Cask Release of the Year. It's a working title. Honestly, I think it's absolutely terrible, but it might stay. I don't know.
What do you guys think? All right, I was really torn between Bardstown Ferron 2 and the Knob Creek 21. But in the end, Knob Creek 21 really won me over. It just has so much flavor and complexity. It's truly one of the best bourbons I've ever had. So for me, hands down, Knob Creek 21 gets my Scroty Award for 2025.
Ryan, I'm also torn because I truly loved a lot of the new releases that we had this year. It's hard for me to pick just one, so I'm narrowing it down to the Knob Creek 21, Penelope Estate, and the Heaven Hill Heritage, which we covered in the last video. Out of those, I'm gonna have to give it to one that I found to be incredibly tasty, full-bodied, complex, and best of all, more affordable and available. So my Scroty Award goes to Penelope Estate 10 Year.
Look at that.
Yeah.
All right.
I love that bottle so much. Congrats to Penelope and Knob Creek for providing us with the tastiest releases that we have had this year. What are your favorite releases of 2025? What gets your Scroty Award? Let us know in the comments below.
If you missed part 1, hit that next. That's where we cover all the big January to May releases. Drop your own S-tier picks in the comments, and if this helped you decide what to buy or skip, throw us a like or a follow on your way out.
And don't forget to join us on our live stream on January 14th.
Until then,
cheers.